Welcome back to our Richest YouTube channel. In today's class, we'll be learning how to make this multiple keyhole neckline bustier blouse. Okay, so we created like 4 keyhole neckline, but you can do as many as you want. And then we use the princess dart bustier for this, and also a basque waistline top. If this is what you like to learn, kindly stay tuned to the end of this tutorial. Thank you. Okay, so to make this blouse, I'll be using this already drafted pattern. So this is a princess dart bustier pattern, and I already have a tutorial on how to draft it. So it is advisable you use a princess dart bustier if you want a bustier multiple keyhole, because of the keyholes that will be on the neckline area. Remember, for a princess dart, it just goes through the armhole, doesn't go straight up here, so it's not going to be interfering with the design that you want to have on your neckline. Okay, so I already drafted this. The only modification that I'm going to be doing to this is that in the case of the one that I already have on the channel, I think the drafting stops around the waist area, which is a half scale body. So this is a full scale. So the difference is just that I measured from here. Remember, that stops around the waist measurement. So here it stops around my waistline, and then I extended the dart line, which is the nipple to nipple measurement. That's the center line here. So here I went up by 2 inches or 2.5 inches, depending on where you want your dart to stop. And then from my waistline, I just connected my dart to that point. So that is the only modification that we have against the one we already have on the channel. So if you don't know how to do this, you may want to check that out. So now if you look at this blouse very well, you notice that it has like a basque effect on the waistline. So to create this basque effect, from the hemline area here, I'll be going upwards by 5 or 6 inches, depending on how much you want your backs to show. So let's say I'm going up by around 5.5 inches. Then from that point, I'm going to be connecting it to the center front like this. Okay, so from there I'm just connecting it straight to my center front like this. You can either make it straight, or you just use the slightly curved part of your roller. So this is just a moderate basque. If you want your basque effect to be really long, so for it to be so obvious, what you can do is just extend what you have here. So if you extend this by maybe 2 inches or 3 inches, you know that is going to give you even a deeper V shape. So you can see what we have here. Let me use another color. Okay, so from there you just connect it. So I'm using a green marker for this, and you can see that the V shape shows more. So depending on how V you want it to be, you just need to go down a bit on your center front like that. Okay, so this is the back part, and I also drafted the back part already. So this is what I have, and then the back is longer than the front is longer than the back because of the bust dart that I have here. So by the time I close up my bust dart, it's going to be the same on this side. So in case you're wondering why we have something short like that for the back. So now remember, we're going to be sewing the front and back together on the side. So you need to, what you have done here, the 5 inches that I have gone up here, okay, that's 5.5 inches. I need to repeat that on this side also. So from the M line here also, I'll go up by 5.5 inches. So in this case, you can just make for the back, instead of it to have that basque effect that you have in front, you can just make the back straight like this. So you have your basque effect only in front, and the back will just be straight. But if you also want the basque effect at the back also, so what you just do is to connect it just like we did for the front. You connect it to your center back like this, and then you cut it out like that. If you want it longer, you extend it here and connect. Okay, so that is just the modification that we have there. So the next thing now is for me to cut out this pattern so that I can cut it out on my main fabric. Okay. Okay, so the pattern is cut out now. This is for the front pattern, this is the center front, and this is the side front. Then I decided to go with this green line for my basque effect. So this is the front and then this is the back. Okay, so I'm just going to cut the back in one piece, then I'll take my dart. So now I'll take this to my fabric. Now I'll cut it out on the fabric. So now if you're going to be lining this, you cut exactly the same thing you have for your main fabric and your lining. I'm not going to be lining this, but I'll be explaining in detail how to go about it if you want it fully lined. So now I'll cut this. I'll be using this Ankara fabric for this tutorial, so I'll cut this on my fabric now and then I'll bring it back to show us. Okay, so I'm gonna have to cut this on my fabric. As we can see, this is the center front and these are the two side fronts, and this here is our two side back. Okay, two back panel. Okay, we did not separate the center back and side back. So now if you're going to be lining this as well, you just need to cut your lining exactly the same way we have done for this, and then we're also going to be sewing it the same way. So we need to fix the lining and the main fabric together before you start creating your keyhole necklines if you want to add linings to this. So the same way you have cut this, you do the same thing for your lining also. So now what I'm going to do to the back now is just to take my dart on both the back panels, and then for the front I'm going to be sewing the bustier dart together like this. So if you want to pad this, you should go ahead to pad this. I also have a tutorial on the channel on how you can pad your bustier blouses. So if you want to pad this, you can either pad it with a wadding or a ready-made backup or a foam, depending on what you choose. So now I'll take this to the machine. Now I'll sew the darts together, take the darts for the back also, then I'm going to join it together on the shoulder, and then I'll shape the blouse, then I'll bring it back so that we can start creating the keyhole neckline. So these are the things that we've been doing regularly on the channel. So by now I'm sure joining this is not going to be difficult. So I'll just go ahead and join them, then we'll move to the most important thing of the tutorial, which is creating the keyhole necklines. Okay, so I've gone ahead to join the dart. So this is the back. I just took my darts for the back, and then for the front, remember we slashed the darts open, so I closed my princess dart bustier, then I went ahead to sew it together on the shoulder, and then I sew it on this side using the 1-inch side seam allowance that I left. So now when I turn this, this is what it's looking like. So if you're going to be adding lining to this, you cut and sew your lining exactly the same way like this, and then you pin them against each other. Okay, so you pin the lining and the main fabric right side facing right side, then you sew it on the neckline, you sew it on the zipper area, then you sew it also on the hemline, on your hemline, and then you turn it out through your armhole, so you conceal everything neatly before you start to create your keyhole neckline. So now we're going to be putting the keyhole neckline at the center front neckline here, and that is what I'm spreading out like this. So if you're adding lining to this, before you do this, your lining should have been added to your main fabric. So depending on how many keyhole you want on this, you need to share it between the space that you have to work with here at your center front. Okay, so this is the center front here, so I may need to replicate this on the paper so that you can see what I'm doing clearly. So I'm just going to be putting this paper on fold now so that I can cut out another pattern so that we can see what I'm doing clearly. So I'm just going to stop my pattern here, and then I'll cut out exactly what I have here. Okay, so this is going to be my new center front. So the fabric is actually multicolored. That is why I'm doing this, so that we will see what I'm trying to do on this fabric. So now that I have this, the next thing I'm going to do now is to start dividing this. And by doing this, I'll just fold this into two, and then I'm going to notch the center front. So I can see this now. I'll just mark this as my center front. I want to add 4 keyholes to this, and then after knotting my center front also, this side also I'm going to fold this into two like this, and then knot it. So you can see the way it's going that is how the, once you fold it, it will just form that diagonal line for you. That is how the keyhole neckline is going to go. So I have that. So for the other one also, I'm going to fold it into two, and then I'm going to note that also. So this is going to guide me on how I want the keyhole to be. So there are several ways you can do this. You can actually get a template, like something round. You want a round figure like this, and then you start placing your template on your pattern just to draw it out. So now let's say here now I want to have 4. So one will be here, one will be here, one here, one here. So it's not going to be exactly on the center front because I'm going to be turning it out. So you can measure like 1/2 inch or 3/4 inch away from your center front like this, and then there you place this your template on that point, and then you mark it out like this. So here for the second one also, I'm going to be going outwards here, and then I'm going to be noting my 3/4 inch, and then on that point also you try to mimic what you have here. Okay, so assuming we're doing this on the paper, you know, easily we can just fold it and trace it with the tracing wheel, but this is on your main fabric, so you just have to get something as perfect as possible. So you try to see what you have, then once you are sure that you have something similar, you draw out another circle. So we have 1, 2. So the next one is to do this now. So for this now, you have to create some sort of space in between them also. So in between this, we have like around 1.5 inches. So here also I'm going to be measuring the 1.5 inches, and then I'm going to be placing this on that point, and then I'm going to draw out my circle. So here now I'm drawing the circle, and you can see how I'm placing it. This line that I have here is directing me on how the circle is going to go. So for the fourth one, I have 1.5 inches between each of the circles, and we want them to be similar. So I'm just going to be placing this also here, and then I'll measure 1.5. So once I have that, I'm going to place my pattern on it again, and then I will see what I have there. If they are similar, I'm going to draw out that pattern, and then I have 4 keyhole design on my neckline. So you can either do this using the ready-made templates, or you can create your template yourself, especially if you don't want it this circular. Remember, we have something circular here. Okay, so this is so to create your own template now, if you don't have like a circular form that you can use, so you just put this paper now on fold, and then especially if you don't want something circular, if you want to create like an oval shape, so here now I'm going to be noting a midpoint here. So after noting my midpoint, depending on how big I want this shape to be, from here now I can just go outwards by 1 inch. So 1 inch means that by the time I open it, it will be around 2 inches. So if that is too much, you can do like 3/4 inch, which is here. So here now, depending on the height of the oval that you want, I can go upwards here by maybe 1.25, then downwards also by another 1.25. Then I'm going to be connecting this in an oval shape. You won't make it too rounded. Okay, you can use a curve for this or your free hand. So once you have that now, you're going to cut that out, and then you use this to cut as your template for your pattern. So once you cut this out now and you open it, you can see like it is like an oval shape. It is not as round as this. So now to do this on your fabric, I'm going to be using this half scale to illustrate it. So just like we did now, so remember this is just half, it's not full like this. So it means you'll just be having 2 designs on it. So just like I did for the first one, I'll also divide this into 2. And after dividing it into 2, you can mark it out so that you will see how the shape is going to follow. So here also, I'm going to go outwards from the center front by maybe 1/2 inch, or depending on the size that the distance you want to have between each of them. So once I have that now, I'm going to place my template. You leave allowance for turning it on the neckline before you place your template, and then I'm going to place my template around here. But before I place my template, I'm going to draw out this pattern like this. So here, remember, it's like an oval. So I'm going to draw this out like this, so that I can have something uniform. I'm not going to be placing it like this. So following this line that I have, I'm just going to fold it into two, and then by the time I fold it into two, I'll place this on it like this also, and then I'm going to draw it out. So once I draw this out now, and then I cut it out, it's going to give me something uniform. So I've done the first one now. So for the second one also, you need to note the distance that you want to have between them. So from here now, you can do like maybe 1.5 or 2 like we did, or you just leave it as it is. So you just fold that also, and then you place your pattern on it. But you just have to be sure of what you're doing. So you may want to check it out. This is how it's going to look like on the other side. If this distance is okay for you, you just go ahead. So once you have that, you're going to draw out your pattern like this. So when you want to cut it out, just the same way you did when you're drafting it out, you have to put it on fold, and then you cut out the shape that you have created. So you can actually do this on a paper first before you do on your pattern. So after doing that also, you do this for it also. You put it on fold, and then you cut that. So putting it on fold means that you are cutting everything out at once, and it will be symmetrical, to be the same. So once you open it, you can see the keyhole that we have there, and you can see that they are very similar and symmetrical because we use the same pattern. So I'll be going for this circular method for mine, and then to cut this out now on my main fabric. I'm supposed to be doing this on the fabric actually, but it's not going to be so obvious because of the multiple prints that we have. You can see that the chalk is not showing well. So everything that I'm doing here is what I'll be doing on the fabric. So now to cut out this pattern now, if you want to cut it out, the first thing you're going to do, remember I said you should put your lining and your main fabric together if you are lining it. So okay, so before you cut it now, because of the lining, so that your lining will not be shifting, you need to sew it round just to hold it. So you sew this circle round just to hold this before you cut it at all. So which means if you're going to be going for this style also, I can easily cut this off if I'm not lining it. But if you're going to be adding lining to this, it means you're going to be opening your pattern and then shape out your pattern. Then you sew it round also before you cut it, so that your lining that is inside will not be shifting. So after sewing your lining round now, you're just going to be cutting it out by just making an incision at the center. So after making an incision at the center, you just cut around it. So you're not just going to be cutting exactly on this circle that you made. You're going to be cutting around it neatly and gently. Okay, so you're going to be cutting around it like this. Then after cutting it, you will turn it with either a bias or a facing. So if you don't want any seam line to be showing, if you want like a really clean finishing, you may want to cut a facing for this, so that by the time you sew it and then you push it your facing, you're going to be hemming it with this hemming gum. So you just place the hemming gum underneath the facing and the fabric, and then you use your iron to press it. So if you don't mind your seam line showing, then you're going to be using your bias to turn it. So I think I'll be doing the two methods here, so that we'll see the difference that each of the method is going to give us. So now that is how you're going to be cutting it off. Now I'll go and do what I have done here on the main fabric now, and I'll show us how we're going to be turning it neatly. Okay, so I've made one of the holes here now, and then to turn with bias, you just take your bias now. To conceal this rough edge, when you're starting, you fold it in, and then this first line that you're seeing here, you place it on your circle, and then you sew around it gently. But because this is a circle, it may be a bit challenging, so you do it in bits, and then you can use the hand wheel of your machine to turn it instead of using your leg. Okay, so that you can do it in bits, and you don't want to go over where you don't want to go to. So once you sew it round, you just fold it in now, and then you sew it in. That is if you want to use a bias. But if you're going to be turning this with a facing, so I just want to explain using the wrong side, so I used the marker. I hope it's a bit obvious. Okay, so now you are not going to be cutting out this shape yet. You're just going to place this on your fabric now, and then you sew it round. So once you sew it round, that's when you make your incision. Then after making your incision, you push inside your excess, the excess you have from your facing, and then you use an hemming gum. You place the hemming gum in between the facing and the main fabric, and then you use it to press it down. So this video is already long, so I don't want it to be too long, but I'll try to show us what I'm talking about. Okay, so if you decide to turn it with a bias, you can see the way I just sew it. So you sew your bias around the opened end that you have, and once you're done sewing it, you just push it inside like this, and then you top stitch on it on the outer part here round, and then you give it a good press, so it will be neatly finished on this side, just like we have. And if you choose to use a facing for it, you can see that I just placed the facing, that's right side facing right side, on the right side of the fabric, and then I made the mark on the wrong side of the fabric. So if you look at it very well, you can see that I just sew on exactly that point where I marked. That was why I said you can use your hand to turn the wool so that you get it right. So you see that I just sew on that point. So after sewing on that point, it will sew the main fabric and the facing together. So after sewing it is when you do your insertion, and then you cut around that stitch. And when you're cutting, you have to be very careful not to rip your seam apart. So you just cut around it. So after cutting around it, you can see the hole that we have. This is what you're going to have. Then you're going to push it inwards like this. So you can serge these rough edges so that it will be neat. Then after pushing it inwards, this is what it's going to look like on the right side of your fabric. It's going to look like this. Then you take it to your ironing table, you iron it well. Then when it is lying flat, you put your hemming gum. This is an hemming gum, it's like a glue, it melts when you iron it. So you put it in between your main fabric and your facing, and then you iron it flat. So that way you have something this neat on the outer part, and then you're not going to be having any seam around it, just unlike what you have when you use a bias. Okay, if you use a bias, remember you still need to sew it with a seam, or if you want to do a stab stitching, like using a needle and thread for it. But this is just easier for you if you don't want any seam line to be showing. So now I'll complete for the 4 keyhole now, then I'll take it to the mannequin so that we'll see what we have. So this is the keyhole neckline. They've all been turned now, and these are the ones that I turned using the facing and hemming gum, and this is the one turned with a bias. So you can see the seam line here for the one turned with the bias. I can see that this does not have any seam line, so I think this is better and it looks cleaner than this, and this looks more professional, but you're free to try out the one that works best for you. So this is the princess seam line that we did, the princess that bustier, and like I was explaining in the video, it's better to use this type of bustier because it goes through the armhole and it's not going to be interfering with the neckline that you want to put your keyhole pattern. And this is the basque effect that we created on the waistline, so you can see what this is giving us. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you enjoyed it, let us know in the comment section. Like, comment and subscribe to our channel, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.